now you see her.
You are magnificent!
Welcome to Her Table, the podcast that shines a spotlight on the badass women who are redefining the game. Join hosts Kate Foley and Megan Martinez as they unlock the secrets of success from the brightest female pioneers in the industry.
Welcome back to Her Table. We have another amazing episode for you today. I am so excited to have former WNBA player and sports agent Ticha Penicheiro join us on the podcast. Ticha was named a WNBA All-Star 4 times and even led the Sacramento Monarchs to a WNBA championship in 2005. So she's kind of a big deal.
I mean, another agent on the show. I mean, let's say less people. I want to get another agent on this show. She was inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in 2019, and she's an active WNBA agent with about 30 clients. She is currently the director of women's basketball for Sports International Group that represents coaches, NBA players, WNBA players. She kind of just does it all, player to agent to Hall of Fame, everybody.
I love it. I'm so excited for our listeners to learn more about Ticha's story and how she has found success in the sports world. Let's go get it. Ticha, pull up a chair at her table.
Let's go.
All the way from Portugal. I mean, if we couldn't have asked, and you were just giving us tips on what's happened in the day already, so it sounds like you're going to have a great day. Great day today here. No. Okay, so are you in Portugal full time or are you back and forth to the States?
I usually spend more time in the States, but because like my dad actually just passed away like 2 months ago, so I've been here way more than normal, and I'm taking my mom back with me. We go back January 20th, so I'm taking her with me. So yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry to hear about your dad.
Yeah, it's I try to focus on the positive. So I had him for almost 50 years of my life. He was an amazing dad. He's the reason why I played basketball. He was my first coach. So
I love that.
Yeah, let's touch on that. You are a former WNBA player. That is so incredible. So you obviously mentioned your dad. So how did you start your love for basketball? I don't know if it's popular in Portugal, how did you find your love for the sport?
Yeah, Portugal, I'm sure you guys have heard of Cristiano Ronaldo. So soccer is the main sport in Portugal. So basketball. Yeah, it's all right?
That handsome man.
I know. So basketball is not that popular. Women's basketball even less. So for me to play basketball was definitely a family thing. My dad played, and then my brother, I have an older brother that also played. So by the age of 5, I was kind of introduced to a basketball, and the rest is history, right? So yeah, that's why I started playing, because it was a family thing.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible, because originally when I saw you were Portuguese, and we just had a guest on from Mexico, and she also played basketball. And it's so interesting to hear like people it's not the norm to play basketball. It's the norm to play soccer. It's the norm to play baseball in whatever country you're in, especially being a woman and stepping out. I just think that is so incredible. Talk about what it was like playing in Portugal and then later on making it to the WNBA. What was that process like? How was it even being seen from Portugal and then coming over to the US?
Yeah, so I'm about to tell my age, but so I decided that I wanted to go to the States, and I was able to find a scholarship, but this is like 94. So there was no internet, no nothing. So I was 16 and I was playing in the first league in Portugal, and I played against a team and they had an American. And after the game, she came up to me. She was like, "You're pretty good. You should go to the States." I said, "I want to, but I don't know how. Like, I don't have an email. I don't have a smartphone. I don't have anything." So I gave her like my parents' landline, which was like a rotary phone. You guys are probably too young to even know what that is, but
no, I know those.
Yeah, and 2 years later, she became an assistant coach at Old Dominion University. So she told the head coach about me, and they came here to recruit me. I went on a visit. I signed. So I played 4 years for Old Dominion University from 94 to 98. The WNBA started in 97. So when I left Portugal, I didn't know that I was going to play in the WNBA because there was no WNBA. So my goal was I want to graduate. I want to grow as a woman. I want to grow as a player and then just play professionally in Europe. And then all of a sudden the WNBA came around and I played 15 years. So that's kind of how I was seen because I was already playing in the States for a college team.
what was it like playing college and then transitioning over to the WNBA? What was, the camps did you have to go to? Did you reach out to teams, coaches? Like, what was the process like? I'm just so curious and think that's so amazing.
So the WNBA is like the NBA. There's a draft. So the draft at my time, it was in New Jersey at the NBA studios. Now it's in New York. They do a big event, red carpet and all of that. Everybody gets their best
Yeah.
outfits and get a designer and a stylist and all of that. But back in the day, I mean, the process is still the same. There's a draft. There's 3 rounds. There's 12 teams, so each team, I mean, depending on, the draft order, most teams pick one time in each round, but from previous years, that could be trades. So sometimes teams pick more than once, but there's a draft. So that's kind of how it works. Yeah.
Okay.
How was it when you came over? What was the cultural change for you, right? I'm sure there was a lot of adapting that needed to happen when you came over to college. What was that like coming over as a young woman to a new country, new people? What was that like for you as you made that change?
New language. I mean, I speak Portuguese.
my
It's my first
yeah.
language. So now I have to go to school. And I mean, I already spoke English, obviously not as good, not as well as I speak today, but going to school. And I remember always sitting in the first row and writing down everything the professor would say. And then being away from my family, the way that we communicate these days there's so many apps and there's people, like there's phones, there's video chats. We didn't have any of that. So internet was just kind of starting. It was so expensive to call home. I had to buy calling cards and call my parents, and it was so expensive. So I think being away from home, it was probably the hardest thing. And then just I wouldn't say language barrier, but there was definitely some things that I didn't understand. So.
Do you think that helps you now as an agent? I think sometimes I always try and draw, right, as something, my experience, my personal experience, to lend that, as counsel or advice to, these young men or women that we work with in the basketball side. Do you use that a lot when you, go recruiting? It gives you so much more edge and expertise than probably most people in your field, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I think at the end of the day, I've been in those players' shoes, literally. I have experienced everything they're about to experience, from being drafted to playing the WNBA to being to having injuries to playing overseas, because a lot of the women do both. They play WNBA in the summer and then they go overseas in the winter. So I've done all of that, so I think sometimes I don't look myself just as an agent, but I always tell them that I'm like a big sister, a mentor, and I can give advice by experience because I literally have lived everything they're living right now.
Yeah. What is it like? Take us through like a normal day as an agent.
Well, it depends on the month.
Kate's like, I can.
I'm laughing because I get the same question and I can only help but laugh because no day is the same. It is time of year, it's day, it's need, and you just kind of are like, I describe it like dumpster fires. Like, what am I going to work on today and get through? And then the rest of it will trickle over as it needs to go. But what's your day like over on the WNBA side?
A lot of time on the phone, that's for sure. So I spend a lot on time on the phone. I mean, obviously checking with my players, with my clients, make sure they're okay. Some are overseas, so I have clients in all kinds of time zones, different time zones. So now, let's say it's January, right? So now I just watch college games and start preparing the players that I want to recruit to sign for this year's draft. I also watch all my players that are playing overseas, and I'm preparing for WNBA free agency, which starts January 21st. So my players, the clients that I have that are currently not under contract, they are free agents. That means January 21st, all the WNBA teams are able to go after these players and start pitching new contracts. And that's when I start negotiating and try to find, the best contract that I can for all the players that are free agents.
So you're on the phone a lot. Is your day easy or hard based on the time of year? Because I mean, that's hard to balance. I mean, you're an agent, you have multiple players, multiple needs, and they're all probably at different phases in their career too. That's one thing that's always hard for me, is what one needs, the other doesn't. So very rarely do you have the same need across the board, and you're kind of juggling a bunch of balls in the air at different, places in career, mentality, need, desire, and just overall mental health of your players.
Yeah, it's kind of my job to know, like, because like you said, I have like about 20 clients and every one of them
Wow.
is different. And some like FaceTime, some like to text, some they don't, you text them and they don't text you back, so so you kind of have
Okay, it's
to
like I can
know
relate.
that. Yeah, so you can
Yes.
like exactly what their needs are, and at the end of the day, I can just check in, and they know that I'm always available, for whatever they need, whether it's on the court, off the court. Sometimes overseas, the clubs don't pay on time, so usually that's what I have to. The biggest problem that I have to solve is, oh, today is the 15th and I haven't gotten paid, and is the I was supposed to get paid on the 5th, so they're 10 days late. So every day is different. There's really no 2 days the same. And now when free agency starts, I'll be a little bit more busy. Yeah.
Man, so you played 15 years in the league. Was there ever a time you wanted to quit playing basketball? And then what was the transition like kind of at the end of your career, then moving on to becoming an agent? And how was it difficult kind of giving up basketball, like playing on the court versus now that you're still in basketball, but you're not actually on the floor?
If I ever wanted to quit, I wouldn't say quit, but I mean, some days, like especially in the beginning when I was in the States and we had like all these hard practices and we had to go to school and then study hall.
Mm-hmm.
And some days I'm like, what am I doing here? I miss my family. Is this worth
Mm-hmm.
it? But I would never let that thought process turn into a snowball and develop, because those you if you can control your thoughts and really have more positive thoughts than negative, then you're able to control more of your happiness and a lot of the things in your life. So yeah, I just relied on my teammates when I felt down or I was missing my parents. But I never really quit basketball. It was my first love. It was
Mm-hmm.
probably the love of my life that I really enjoy doing, and I still do. So I really wanted to just enjoy each moment. Some days, you play bad or you have injuries and you start questioning stuff. But at the end of the day, those were like maybe minutes or maybe hours. But I
Mm-hmm.
never let it drag along to the point that I wanted to quit. Unfortunately, you can't play forever. So as I start getting ready, start my body start falling apart. I hit 35 and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? So I start preparing myself to the point where when I retired, it was going to be a smooth transition. And I knew that I didn't want to coach. I knew that much. It was too much. Yeah.
How was the transition for you? Walk us through to become an agent, obviously in the WNBA. What is that process like? And how did you go from pro to that? How was that transition and what did it take for you to do?
Yeah, so you have to be certified by the Players Union, the WNBPA, and also by FIBA. So you have to pass a test. You got to study for it. Got to pass it. Then once you get your license, then you are basically active. But I felt like just my experience as a player, a lot of times, I was with my agent also negotiating my contract. So I just felt like it was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to give back to the game. I want to kind of pay it forward. I knew that I didn't want to coach and I knew that I love basketball. So like, what can I do that I can still stay in the game, but not coach? And the more I thought about it, I just felt like this is something that I really would like to do. And it's been 12 years now and I really enjoy it.
So
Wow.
fantastic. No, it's always
Yeah.
interesting because, on the men's side, we have to take a test as well, right? So it's always, how do you take the test? I think one of the things that, I always encourage, especially our young men on our side, is to learn the business. And I think that's what you did as an athlete, right? Is you learned the business and you understand not only the game of basketball, but the business of basketball. And it's so, so different.
Yeah.
How do you help educate your players that you work with on the importance of that? And have you ever had a situation where they're like, nah, I don't care. I just want to play ball. And you've kind of had to, pull them along and make them understand, especially as women, to understand, everything. Cause I think we always say, come prepared, right? Like you need to be over prepared as a woman in the world of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely when you are in this position of leadership, and as an agent, as a mentor, it's not just about basketball. It's about, now you got to pay taxes. Now you got to save your money, don't buy that Louis bag. It's really, it's really not an investment. Let's buy a house, just kind of give them life advice. Sometimes it's more important than basketball advice, but, and at the end of the day, I just want to really be for them to be comfortable with me so they can call me about whatever it is that is bothering them, and they can use me just to kind of vent and for me to really give them the advice that I can give. So, but yeah, I mean, sometimes you gotta, especially with social media these days, I've had some tough conversations about why are you posting that?
Yes.
Tell me one good thing, one positive thing of you posting that exact thing. Yes, you cannot, you can't tell me positive things. So just don't do it anymore. So sometimes
Yeah.
you kind of have, their mom
Yep.
mentality and be like, okay, I have all these kids. So some are, a little different. So you gotta, make sure that you sometimes are also real with them. That's one thing that it's important to me to be transparent and honest. And I will not be doing them any favors if I would just, put stuff, under the rug. So
Yeah,
this is
no.
the best way is to really be honest with them. And if I feel like there's something that can hurt their career or their image, it's kind of my job to let them know.
And what is the ruling to go into the WNBA? Is it how many years removed? Do they have to be, and what's the typical average age of a client that you recruit and look to sign?
Yeah, so for the WNBA, it's not one and done like in the men. You cannot go to college for 1 year and then jump. I mean, we don't make enough money in the WNBA. I mean, you can literally be the number one pick and be cut. There's no guaranteed contracts for rookies. So it's really important that, they have an education just in case basketball doesn't work out, that you can fall back and have a plan B. But for the WNBA, you have to be either 22 years old or you have to have
Mhm.
already graduated. But if you're a foreigner, then you can enter as an 18-year-old. But if you are in college, you have to already have graduated or turned 22 the year of the draft.
Wow.
That's
Yeah, that
fascinating.
is
Like
really
why,
cool.
why is it guys can go at 19, but girls can't go till they're 22? Like I'm sorry, I
I,
think girls are way more mature than young men
I,
sometimes. So I'm
I
trying to
think is
understand the logic.
the maturity 100%. I think we all in this call can agree to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
We just do
But
better.
it's
It's
I
fine.
mean it's a money thing. I mean on the men's side, if you are in the first rounds in the NBA, you're going to make millions and your contract is guaranteed. On the women's side, you're going to make like 60,000 and your contract is not guaranteed. You can literally be cut in a training camp and make nothing. So then you don't have your degree to fall back on, and you don't have basketball in the WNBA. So yeah, okay, you can go play overseas, but also you don't have your degree. And then now to go back, you lost your eligibility. So now you have to pay out of your own pocket to finish your school. So it just goes back to it's a money thing.
Mhm.
Some people disagree with it. I'm kind of on the fence. You're an adult, you are able to drive and drink and do whatever. Like, so you should be able to, make those decisions for yourself. But I think it's more of a protection for the women. So to make sure that they get their degree just in case basketball doesn't work out.
What's the process like for you as an agent? Are you, when it comes to women that are playing overseas, and then the women that are, maybe they're playing in March Madness, or they haven't graduated yet, but how do you go about looking at those young women athletes, kind of looking at who you want to sign, how you find them, especially if they're overseas? Yeah, talk me through that process.
So the recruiting process is obviously you want to represent players that are really good at basketball, but also it's important to me that they have high character and they are good people. They respect the game. They respect their teammates. They're coachable. I try to, really go after players that in a way are similar to my personality. Because that's important to me. I always say I represent you, but you also represent me. So that's important to me. And then, I mean, I watch a lot of the college games, and you kind of write down the players that you are interested in, and you kind of just follow them. And then I try not to reach out to the players directly. So I usually go with the coaches. I try to play by the rules.
Mm.
I mean, with social media these days, it's so easy for you to slide in the DMs. And
Hmm.
but either I have a player that maybe play for that school and they are friends and they know each other. So I usually, try to either connect with their families or with the coach or with a friend of the player. But yeah, everybody, is different, but I try to be very respectful because at the end of the day, they're still student athletes. They have a lot on their plate with school
Hmm.
and trying to, play the best they can. And I don't want to be a distraction.
No, 100%. I think it's also interesting too, just the layers that people don't understand of everyone always thinks it's so easy to just go in and sign. Like it's just you walk in, you sign them, and then you just everything's perfect. What for you is the average? Do you recruit over years or do you wait usually till like the end of, their senior year since the timing is different? And how often do you lean on your current clients to help support and champion for you too? Because I think that's important, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, NIL changed everything because before,
Mm.
because the women kind of had to stay 4 years in college, I would just start watching them as freshmen and then see how they progressed, watch their body language, talk to their coach, talk to people that knew them, like really do my homework, to go beyond what they do on the basketball court. But now they can sign in high school with agents. So now you don't want to be late for the party, right? So you kind of have to start recruiting when they're in high school because then if you really like a player and you don't sign them in high school, you might not be able to sign them when they're seniors. So
Yeah.
NIL changed everything. So now you kind of be a little bit more, specific and do even more homework so you can, actually talk to these players, while they're still in high school.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because they're just, at the end of the day, they're just people. I think
Yeah.
it's a lot of times, you were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Like let's get on with that because that's fantastic. Like
Thank
literally,
you.
again, like we're just in the room. We're in the room with the Hall of Famer right now.
I
Like
know, that's so cool.
we're literally just the regular degulars, and she's in the Hall of Fame. That's
I know.
fantastic. When you were
Thank
inducted
you.
into that, what was that like for you? Because was that something you'd always wanted, or was it something you thought like, I'm, sounds cool, but it's going to be hard to do? Like, did you know that you were destined for that, or was it something over your career you were like, this is kind of
To
possible?
to be completely honest, like I just play because I love the game and I really enjoyed it. And I feel like all those individual awards just come to you organically if you play the right way and you do what you're supposed to do. Obviously, if you have great teammates and good coaches, they help you win, and those things happen organically. And I grew up in Portugal. I didn't even know where the Hall of Fame was. So
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, obviously, after being in the States for a while, you kind of get, a little bit more understanding and knowledge that obviously it's a huge accomplishment. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in Spain watching a basketball game, and my phone rang, and it was a weird number. And I'm like, usually I don't answer because it's somebody trying to sell some car warranty or something. So I just sent it to voicemail, but I actually took the call, and it was the president of the Hall of Fame, like asking, telling me that I was like a candidate, and in a few weeks they were going to decide. I was a finalist, and there in a few weeks they were going to decide who was going to, make it. And I'm like, oh my God, So then I remember I called my parents right away. But yeah, I think I always try to play the game the right way. Try to be a team player, try to win, and I think those things happen organically. But definitely, it's a huge accomplishment, and I'm super proud. Plus, I'm Portuguese, so I always, had a whole lot of pride of, being from Portugal, small
Right.
country, small hometown where basketball is almost not existent, and to be able to go to the States and have this success, it was pretty special.
Yeah, describe the experience and like what went through your mindset when you guys won the WNBA championship when you were with the Monarchs, like back in what,
Whew.
2005 or so?
Yeah,
Oh,
2005. I mean, we had been trying for a while, but at the time it was the West, and we had to go against the Houston Comets and the LA Sparks, the Phoenix Mercury. So it was really hard to get out of the West. So
hmm.
for so many years we had our hearts broken, but that was the year that we finally got over the hump, and to be able to win the WNBA championship at home in front of 17,000 fans, it was amazing. It was a full sellout, sold out arena. So it felt really, really special to win in front of them.
That is so incredible. Like that's where I was thinking about too. I'm like, wow, like I'm literally talking to an athlete who has won a WNBA championship, and that's really, really cool. Like that's so cool, amazing. How have you
Thank you.
seen the progress, I guess, from when you first started at the WNBA to what it is now?
Oh, it's so much more competitive. I mean, literally, when the league starts, you don't really know who's going to win. I mean, there's always the favorites, but each game, it's more competitive. I mean, now the WNBA has been around for 27 years, so really, like little girls in middle school, high school, they can start getting ready to play in the WNBA. They hire trainers and shooting coaches when they're like 14. So I feel like the level is way better. Viewership is up. The sponsors, I mean, everybody's trying to invest in women sports, and the WNBA is a great product. And now, from not being a player but being an agent, also a fan, and just taking a seat and watch it, it's very exciting sport. And these women are amazing, and they can really play ball.
Did you have any, I want to talk to you a little bit about Brittany Griner and what happened in the WNBA and her, I guess she was detained, I guess is the right word, unlawfully detained. How did that impact you as a person, as a previous player? Did you know her? And secondly, how was that, having that communication with your players? I mean, you talked earlier, a lot of these young women and ladies in the WNBA do play overseas to bridge the gap financially for themselves, as obviously there still is a huge gap in pay between the WNBA and the NBA. What was that like for you in time and place when Brittany was over in Russia?
Yeah, obviously really sad. I mean, she's a great human being. I've never played with her or against her. She's super young. So by the time I actually tried to recruit her, but I was just starting, so I knew it was a really long shot. But everybody that talks about Brittany has nothing but good things to say. She's a big teddy bear, great heart. And I played in Russia, so I know how Russia is. They're very, very tight, very strict. And, it's just one of those things that it's an unfortunate thing. And obviously, the crime didn't fit the time that she made. I'm just glad she's out. And I think for my players it's almost like one of those things that, just learn from other people's mistakes. I mean, she might have made a small mistake that cost her so much. But, just glad that she's back in U.S. soil. Glad she played last year. And glad she's, hopefully this is one terrible story that everybody can learn from.
Did it scare your clients at all? Was it, I mean, it was a long time. And I know, obviously I have some friends in the industry that were part of her team to get her back here. And there was a lot of different people involved in that. Was there any hesitation from any of your players about going overseas or, could this happen to me kind of thing? I think it's you touched earlier on how important it is to be connected to your athletes. I mean, her first call was to her agent, not to her wife, not to her mom or dad. Her first call was to her agent, Lindsay. So, was that hard for you? Was anybody scared? I mean, I know I had on our side, guys were like, holy shit, can this really happen? And how does this work? And what will we do? It created that big conversation.
Yeah, I actually played for that club when I played in Russia, the club that she played for. And I had some of my clients were playing with her. They were her teammates when that happened. So obviously a very scary situation. And then, players overseas, sometimes it just makes you question if you want to come over here. But like you said, WNBA, it's a 4-month league that doesn't pay enough for most of the players to just have that job for those 4 months. So most of the players decide that they play all year round, and they a lot of them come, to Europe. And Russia was definitely one of the best destinations because they paid the most money out of Europe. Our team had Brianna Stewart, at Courtney Vandersloot, at Allie Quigley, Jonquel Jones, Emma Meeseman. All of these players are all-stars. They all were playing on the same team. And they all were getting really good money to play there. So, but obviously also the timing of Brittany's, being detained, it was at the same time that the war broke between Ukraine and Russia, and that just kind of made everything worse. And now, I mean, you have some Americans playing in Russia, but I don't have any clients playing in Russia, and I would never advise anybody to go play in Russia or in Israel right now, because you never know, and one of the things that is important is that you try to preach that this is a safe space, this is a safe city, country, team. And right now I can say that about Russia or Israel.
Well, and it's hard because you have to advise them, right? And it's if you say it is, then you want to be able to stand on that, and you want to be able to say, no,
I don't make promises I can't keep.
Yeah,
I don't make promises I can't keep. Yeah,
you find out quickly in this industry if you do, you're going to get exposed. Like it
Yeah.
is, you got to stand on what it is. Have you had anybody in your career? Obviously, you had an agent before you were an agent. Have you had anybody that's kind of pushed you down that path, or anybody that inspired you to go down that path from an agency side, just seeing as how influential agents are to their players?
Well, Andrew Brandt was my first agent. I signed with him coming out of college, and then he had to leave me because he decided to take the job as the GM for the Green Bay Packers. And till this day, he's someone that, I learned a lot from him. He was a lawyer. He's also a professor in Boston. He teaches law school.
Wow.
Law in college, and just great guy, stand up guy, had great just values, honest, kept it 100 with me, so I think that's why I picked him, right? Because I felt like I could connect with him, and just the way I played, even my person, a lot of people were like, yeah, you're a great player, but you're a better person. And I think sometimes that was the best compliment that you can give, because it's my values, the way my parents raised me. And I know in this business sometimes, there's a lot of, people lying, being dishonest, not being transparent. And I never want that to be me. So I think from those values, that kind of why I picked Andrew, you also passed on that to me. So if I had to pick one person, I would say him.
That's
fantastic.
amazing.
That's
What's like been
fantastic.
your biggest accomplishment as an agent? You've been in, this role for, over a decade now. What's like one of your most proudest moments?
Oh man, it's anytime one of my players gets drafted, it's I feel like, their cries, their dream is coming true. I can relate back to when I was drafted in 1998. So it's hard to just pick, one moment, but from them being drafted, sometimes they become all-stars for the first time, then they
hmm
get to the USA Olympic team. So just winning championships. This past year, Alicia Clark, it's someone that I represent. She's more of a veteran, and her dad also passed away last year. And the fact that she was able to win this championship, and I know that a lot of times she even asked herself if she wanted to play basketball again, because you just sometimes go to a dark place because you miss your dad. And the fact that she was able to win the championship, and I know that he was so proud of her. I mean, stuff like that is like, it just makes everything worth
Special.
it, So it's
Special.
very special. Yeah. So you
That's
just
my
kind of,
favorite too.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
my
you kind
favorite. And
of
people
just,
say, like, what's the best part? I'm like, it's draft night. It is. It's
yeah,
draft night when you get to watch all that hard work pay off for someone else. Like, you're not walking across the stage. Like, it's not you. You know what I mean? That to me is the special.
yeah, for sure. I mean, draft is definitely special. But then there's like other moments if they have a career high, or if they, so I just, I'm their biggest fan, So when I watch all the games, sometimes I have the TV, the iPad, the computer, I have all the games going on at the same time. I look like a crazy, crazy person. But yeah, I'm very dedicated, and I'm like their biggest cheerleader.
I love that. What advice would you give to young women who want to have your role one day? Is it mostly geared towards women who are in the WNBA, or what about the ones that didn't play, make it to that level, but still want to be an agent?
I think you have to do in life what you are really passionate about. So I was passionate, and I am passionate about women's basketball. To me, it's like I just want to see the game to continue to grow. I want my clients to be as successful as they can be on and off the court. So it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's a lot of agents that never play basketball. So it
hmm
doesn't really matter if you play basketball or not, as long as you are passionate about women, about making their lives better. If you are committed, if you're honest, if you're transparent, there's so many qualities that I feel like an agent should have. But the first one is probably passion. You have to love what you do. Otherwise, you know what they say. If you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And that's
Right.
kind of how I feel. So I really love what I do. I love my clients, and I'll do anything for them. And I try to work as hard as I can for them. But anybody can be an agent as long as they have that passion.
What's been one of the biggest challenges for you in this career? A lot of times in sports, we say it's a commitment. You're signing up for a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time and energy away from your family, your loved ones, and your own personal life to contribute to someone else's personal life. So what has been a big sacrifice for you?
I don't want to call it sacrifices, but I mean, there's a few things that are like the same as I played. I don't have any any months that are off, or sometimes I don't have vacation, because even if I go on vacation, going on a true vacation is to leave my phone at home. So
That's
I'm
not
like,
possible. You can't do that.
I can't. Like,
You
I would have
can't.
anxiety attack if somebody texts me and I see it and I don't reply right away. So, going into a dinner, I tell my friends, listen, this is my work phone. So if one of my players calls me or texts me, I will pick up the phone. So they all know. I have my red phone is my work phone, and then my clear case is my personal one. That one I don't care. But so,
I got you. I got you right here.
Yeah, look.
See? Don't ask me though how many unread texts I have. We played this game before. That's not
Oh
fair.
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Here's me,
my phone's
non-agent
face
life.
down. Yeah. So I mean, and the other thing that honestly, I had to come to be okay with. I had to like make amends with myself. It's that sometimes you can do everything right and it's not enough, and you get fired. And I feel like we live in a society these days that is like everybody thinks the grass is greener. And that kind of bothered me a little bit in the beginning, because I'm like, they're like, oh, I love you. You're great, but I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm like, but why? So, but that's kind of, the moment that we live in. And at the end of the day, all I can do is control what I do and do the best that I can. And if that's not good enough and they think somebody out there is better for them, I'm like, go ahead. But, but that's one negative thing that sometimes I don't like about this business. Yeah.
No, it's definitely hard. I mean, I know I face it too, where you're like, what? Because it's such a personal thing that you are not transactional. So many agents are transactional, so they'll just not care. They're like, great, write off number 13, bump up 14, and it just goes. But when you pour your heart and your soul into it, it's definitely an interesting. I always say too, one of the things I struggle with a little bit is when people want to fire their agents and come over to Epic. I'm like, but why? You're going to hurt someone. Like, oh my God, they're like, but I have to stop and take the emotion out and then do the business side, which is, okay, we are great people. We run a great business and they want what we're, the services we're providing. But I do have that little bit inside of me that's like, oh no, I'm going to be part of
I'm the same way.
Upset.
I'm like, why are you doing that? It might not be her or his fault. Like, why are you firing?
Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But then it's like, it's a business too. It's how one of the interesting things that happened to me recently, one of my clients had their first player waived on their team. So they went to practice, and then after practice, one of their friends wasn't on the team anymore. And it was like a shock for him of like, wait, what? You're not going to be here? Is this a joke? You're not going to be here anymore? Do you ever have to go through that with your clients? And if so, if your clients are kind of waived or traded, what goes into that? I want you to kind of dig into that a little bit, because it's life-changing.
Yeah, it's tough, especially in the WNBA. I mean, you have the draft that 36 players get drafted. Some of them don't even get to experience training camp, because the only 15 players can go to training camp, and they might already have 15 players. So they just picked you because they had to pick someone, so sometimes,
wow.
And the WNBA is only 12 teams, 12 players per roster. So somebody's going to get cut. And a lot of times it's the rookies, because they have the least experience, or sometimes it could be a veteran. But yeah, I've definitely have had those situations, and I have players that have gotten cut multiple times, and they fall down and they get back up and they say they want to try again and they want to try again. And I'm like, wow. And then they get to the point that now I have one player in particular, I don't even want to say her name, but she has been cut several times, and now it's free agency. And I have like 4 or 5 teams that want her, and that makes me so happy that her perseverance, her resilience, never wanted to give up. She could be like, forget the WNBA, I'll just play overseas. But, she worked so hard to the point now that she's like a hot commodity in free agency.
Wow. So. What's that process like for someone like me who doesn't know the whole agency side? And I'm always so fascinated when I hear Kate talk about it, and I'm, learning about your side on the WNBA. What is that process like where you have a client that gets fired? Sometimes they're like done, they don't want to, play anymore. do you reach out to coaches to get them back into a team, or like how do you go about that?
Yeah, so when a player gets cut in the WNBA, usually they have like 48-hour period to clear waivers, and then they get picked up by other teams. So that's obviously the first thing that you do. You start getting on the phone with some of the GMs from other teams and try to make sure that you can find a team for this particular player. But sometimes it doesn't happen. So then it's like, okay, let's go overseas. Let's get you on a good team, have good stats, and we try it again next year. And some of them say, you know what, I'm okay. I don't want to play in the WNBA. I'll just focus and stay overseas and then have my summers off. So everybody's a little bit different. And some of them get cut and they be like, I don't want to try anymore. But so at the end of the day, it's like you just have to ask the player what they want to do and then just follow their instructions.
And how do you manage the mental health side for this? I mean, I think, it is oftentimes I encounter people that forget that these athletes, men and women, are just people. And they expect them to be this big persona that they see on the floor and on the court. And in real life, they're probably very reserved. They're probably very introverted is a good word because they have to be on so much. How do you see the industry on the WNBA side? How have you seen it change from a mental health capacity?
Yeah, I've had several players that were strong enough and bold enough and vulnerable enough to at least tell me what they were going through. And then, I think as a professional athlete, sometimes you are taught you can't complain, you got to be strong, and you just got to shut up and just do it. And I know I did that so many times. I mean, maybe I had mental health issues before, and just deal with anxiety and stuff like that. But we didn't talk about it back then, so you just got up and go, and just put your shoes on and go to practice and go to the games and just act like you're happy and everything is good. But I've had several players that have come to me and, and just were very open. So I was like, okay, let's find you a professional. I can talk to you, but I'm not a professional, so I want you to talk to someone. And most teams now have sports psychologists where players feel comfortable talking to them. But I think the first step is for players to understand that it's okay if you don't feel your best. And you, just like you work your shot, you got to work your mental. And if your mental is not right, then, most likely you're not going to play well. So, and that's, again, kudos to those that have stepped forward, and now they can be an example for a lot of them. They still feel, like they are in a shell, and they're scared of saying something because they feel like they're too vulnerable. They put themselves in a bad position if they do that.
I want to ask this burning question because I want to know, obviously there have been some amazing women in the WNBA that have also become mothers. And I would be remiss not to ask, I'm a mom myself, of just what is that like for them? Obviously, are they allowed, my questions are they allowed to play pregnant? How much maternity do they get off, right? How much are they able to take? Is it paid leave, not paid leave? And what protections are put in place for them as, they want to become moms, right? Because obviously different from a man, right? On the NBA side where he's like, my, wife is having a baby. We're having a baby, but really your wife's just, driving that taxi and you're collecting the fare at the end. What is that like on the WNBA side? I want to know, and I know our listeners are fascinated by what that program looks like in the WNBA.
It's just changed recently, just the last CBA. That's when they added maternity leave. Like if a player's pregnant, you cannot cut her. She has to get her old salary. It wasn't like that before. So this just
stop it right
recent.
now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stop it.
I know. I know. It's crazy. Now it's,
I'm shook.
Things that you don't even think about, but it didn't happen before. Before, if you were pregnant, they could just cut you and good luck.
Oh my
and
God.
that comes with insurance, everything that you all of a sudden realize that you don't have, right? So thank God times have changed, and a lot of the players fought for this with the last CBA. And we have a lot of WNBA moms. Some of them have been moms more than once. And if you are a mom, your body goes through these crazy changes, and then all of a sudden it's okay, some of them in 1 month after they give birth, they're already playing. which is just a testament to their willingness to
For
to be
sure.
the best athletes, the best professionals they can be.
For sure. So they get maternity leave, they can't be cut, like all of that stuff. How
Yeah.
is there also a program in place on the WNBA side? That's so fascinating to me. On the WNBA side for young moms that, obviously have a baby and then return to work. Is there a program in place for them if their children need to travel with them or they're nursing or something like that? Or is it just kind of like, we're going to give you this little bit? I'm just fascinated by this because there's so many young girls that oftentimes feel like they have to choose. Like I can
Yeah.
be an executive, I can play in the WNBA, or I can be a mom. And I think all
Yeah.
of the above are true, and the world's changing slowly but
Yeah,
surely.
I mean, and for those that don't know, like the WNBA, they don't fly charter. So if you do have a newborn and you decide that you are back on the roster, you have to take your child with you on a plane that has all these other people. You're not just on a private plane like the NBA. A lot of them hire, or they bring their their mothers, so the kids' grandmothers, like to be nannies. But they do hire nannies because, at the end of the day, it's like a lot of them just, prepare all the milk and all the stuff they have to prepare. That they go to practice, they come back. Some of them be pumping at halftime. It's crazy.
That's
They
Wow.
should definitely
so
do a documentary
amazing.
about that because people don't
Yeah.
even realize like what these women go through, especially the ones that have to juggle being a mom and being the best pro athlete that they can be.
Yeah.
That's
Well, and
incredible. I had no idea that was
See,
like just
Oh
Megan
yeah.
you don't
wanted to
even.
know too.
Oh, I'm so genuinely like, wow, fascinated by all this. And you said that
Oh yeah.
they don't normally fly charter flights either?
No. There's a new rule, like the commissioner put in that now for playoffs, the teams are allowed to fly charter, but during the regular season, they just fly, the regular planes, Southwest,
No
American, whatever,
way.
with everybody fighting for the exit rows.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know if Kate knows. So my mom's a flight attendant and she flies a lot of the NBA charter flights. So I'm very familiar with like her flying like the Utah Jazz and her flying, the Lakers and stuff. So for me, like just as an outside, person, I just assumed that was the way for WNBA as well. So wow, learning things this whole entire interview, I'm just really impressed.
Yeah, at the
Learning.
end of the day, we have taken a lot of steps forward, the
Yeah.
maternity leave and all of that, but we still have so much room to grow. So it's just, as what I say is like, as long as we keep taking steps forward and never backwards, even if they're baby steps, at least we're moving forward. But yeah, I think sometimes we got to a point that we're just like, oh, we're happy that we have a league, but this league is successful. The product is amazing. Their sponsors, the viewership is crazy. So sometimes we have to be a little bit more demanding because you know what? If we don't ask, they're not going to give it to us. So we got to ask.
How has it been for you? We've seen the last couple of years and probably more so in the last 2 years, a lot of NBA players come out to champion, support, engage, and participate in the WNBA. I mean, you'll see guys at WNBA games, you'll see them at training camps. They all have kind of come around to support women, which I love. And you'll see Mikal Bridges at games, you'll see LeBron at games, you'll see a lot of guys, pull up to WNBA games. How has that made you feel as, from being a player before, right?
What they say, game recognizes game at the end of the day.
Yes, say it again. I love that.
But they've been doing that forever. I remember when I played in Sacramento, like all the Kings players would come to watch practice sometimes, to come to the games. I played in LA for 2 years. Kobe's dad was our coach. Sometimes Kobe would come to the games. And everybody knows, rest in peace. But Kobe was like probably the number one fan. Having 4 daughters really had probably a lot to do with that. But these guys know that we can play. They don't support just for show or for Instagram posts. They really come to the games and they watch it and they support it, and they know that the women in the WNBA are a good product to watch.
I just love seeing it. I love seeing men champion it. I love seeing women championing it. And I think as the industry grows and it becomes more visible and you guys have a bigger conversation, right, about the impact that you're able to have. I mean, I think, there's so many young girls that have grown to love the game of basketball and have the experience to play it because of amazing players like yourself and even your players you represent now. It's you see more and more girls clinics, you see more and more, boys and girls clinics. And so it's great to see how the game can impact different genders, different ages, different ethnicities, different cultures. At the end of the day, the game's the same. And so,
I mean, my role models were all male. I didn't have any women role models when I was growing up. I wanted to be like Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. I mean, and look now, like all these little girls, not just for basketball, but for soccer, for swimming, for tennis. There's so many kick-ass women that are so successful in sports. So for all these little girls to have that many women role models, it's amazing. I didn't have that growing up, and I wanted to be like Magic Johnson. So now I'm glad times have changed, and all these little girls have amazing role models to follow.
Well, you're one of those role models. You are one of those people that these little girls look up to and are like, I want to be like her. And I think that's why I'm so excited we got to share your story, because it's not the regular story. It's not the path destined. It was the path created, and you continue to evolve and be fluid in the space. And one of the things I wanted to ask you about is Special Olympics is near and dear to your heart. And I want you to tell everybody and tell us why Special Olympics. I love it. I think it's a great cause. I think for me, it's a space, it kind of humanizes everybody just a little bit. It's a safe space, but it's also a space that doesn't necessarily get as much attention as it used to. And I want to try and see that narrative change. So what is Special Olympics to you, and why did you get involved with it?
I feel like, I'm very blessed. I grew up and I'm functional. I didn't have any, liability, like disabilities, and I was able to play basketball professionally. And some people that are born with some disabilities that are automatically, put to the side. And every time that I had any appearances and I went to hospitals or I went to have days with Special Olympics, they're so happy. They have no worries in the world. They're like the happiest people. And sometimes, like, I felt like I got more from it than they did. Like, they were happy that we were there. But sometimes it's like we worry about stupid stuff, like, and it just puts everything in perspective, just for us to be a little bit more humble, to be more grateful, to, I don't know, and to me, it just changed my day and my week and my month. And it just made me a little bit more appreciative of everything that I had, and just being healthy and being, able to play basketball at the highest level. So to share like an hour or 2 hours with them, it just really made my day, I think, more than I made theirs.
I love that experience when you come out of something, because that's something like I cherish so much, is when I actually go to give of myself and then I walk. I feel like this about this podcast. I get so much more from it than I could possibly ever give to it. And it wasn't by design. It's actually by perfection, right? Like that means I'm on the right path and what I'm doing is purposeful. But Special Olympics is so great because I think everybody that participates in it and their parents, it gives them a way to connect where the connection might be difficult to have or not what everyone anticipated. And so it's a safe space for these young athletes, men and women, to come. But there is no, in my mind, happier place than the Special Olympics and those athletes and how excited they are. But when you watch them, they are the biggest cheerleaders for each other. Like, my goody golly.
Love it.
They go in and they are just so dang happy for each other. And I feel like we can all take a lesson from that space where we're all different, we're all the same. But, watching them just cheer for people they don't know, and they really mean it. And they cheer for each other. It's beautiful. I wish there was more.
The world needs more empathy for sure. And that's something that it comes to them so natural. And sometimes even like when people give you their empathy, it's fake or forced. But with them, it's so organic. It's just natural. And it's just a joy to watch, how happy they are, their smiles and the way they dribble. And I mean, it's like they have no cares in the world. And we sometimes have cares that are not real cares, and we just pay attention to small stuff that irritates us. And it's really, in the big scheme of things, they're really nothing. So to me, it was just like an eye-opening experience, and just really to be even more grateful and thankful for, my health, my family, my friends, and everything, but also to be in the presence of people that are really genuine.
Do you share that with your clients? I find that's one of the things I press really hard on my young clients early on, is to find something that gives you purpose and passion beyond the game, because
Yeah.
it's something you can draw from and you can connect with. Because you said earlier, right? Like, there's days you just want to give it all up, and there are days you feel like you get it right as a basketball player, and you can't be too high and you can't be too low, but you have to have something that fills your cup outside of the game, that you give so much to. Do you encourage your athletes to get into, philanthropic side, give back, and, find something else that kind of fills, that they can lean into if they're struggling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think community is super important for all of them. And so sometimes it's just finding the time,
Yes.
to do a summer camp, or to do like a basketball camp, or to like have their own charity or event or something. Because like I said, they play 12 years out of the year, and sometimes it's so hard to find the right time. But most of them do an amazing, job, just, giving back to whatever it is, back to their cities, to their communities. Most of them have some type of niche that they have found, whether it's they just do it for one day out of 365, but they all do it. And we also encourage, like during Thanksgiving and Christmas, we do coats for kids. So we partner with people, and they give us all these coats, and then they all go back to their home cities, and they find like a place where they donate the coats. So it's something that we are very involved with, and we always encouraging our players to do. I think you just feel much better about yourself when you give back to your community.
It's bigger than you, right? That's what I always say.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than just myself and what I can contribute. It's how I can impact. And I truly feel that every athlete, or any person really, it's not even athletes, everybody, I guess, you have the ability to impact. And whether
Right.
it's big or small, you have the ability to and the responsibility to. And I think that's, when you look at some athletes and influencers, they get it and some don't. And I think those are the ones that I would probably venture to say you like to recruit and sign, are the ones that get it, because
Yep.
they're the most authentic of themselves. So I think that's great.
100%.
What do you want to see change in the game of basketball for women, or the sports industry for women? Because you're an agent, you were on the player side, and now
How
you're on
much
the agent
time do
side.
we have?
What do you want to? What's your top thing you want to see change here in the next couple of years?
I mean, honestly, it'll be great, like if the salaries continue to grow, to improve and to get better. Not really, the women sometimes they play overseas because they have to. It's not like they want to, because it's really hard. And I know I did it for 15 years, to play all year round, not having vacation, not having a time and for your mind and your body to rest is very, very hard. The charter planes, like just overall for the conditions for professional women that do a really good job at being pros, to continue to improve. That's, my goal, for the game to continue to grow, for viewership to continue to grow, for more sponsors to continue to invest in women. And I feel like women in sports is growing so fast. And before, it was just like a charity case, and everybody was like, oh, okay, let me give some money, it'll be a tax write-off. And I think people now, more companies are really, really investing because they see a return. So I think we are in good space, but like I said, there's always, room for improvement and for growth.
How important is it for like those professional athletes, showing up to the games and kind of making maybe if people on social media just like more aware of the WNBA? Because over the last few years, I've seen such a big increase, just like learning about the WNBA because of those players. And then I think Tom Brady too made an investment in the WNBA as well. So I'm curious, like how important that is, like going forward, and how that can kind of reach to different audiences as well.
Yeah, I think it's great. And it's not just athletes. I mean, you see actors, singers. You go, and then especially in the big cities, you go to New York, like Brooklyn, the Liberty. I was at game 3 of the finals, and the whole like courtside seats, it was all celebrities, and then you have social media, which kind of helps tell everything because it's on your phone. You can just with a click, you can see everything, and it goes through your phone. And then he's like, oh, maybe so and so was at the WNBA game, or maybe I'll give it a try. Maybe I'll take my niece. Maybe I'll take my cousin. Maybe I'll take my mom. And it's just like word of mouth. But there's still so much hate and so many people that women belong in the kitchen, and and this and that. And I feel like those are just frustrated man that never played sports, and they don't even know what we can do. You kind of try to block them off, and but I still feel like there's room for improvement. I mean, viewership is up, but I would like to see the arenas continue to sell out more and more, because I really believe the product is amazing, and these women can really play, and it's fun to watch.
I love it. I think too, one thing that I would love to see is the WNBA really highlight more of the moms and their stories, and what does their regular day look like? Because I think there's a big connectivity opportunity to these moms that are in different paths or different careers, or they just had a baby, or you know what I mean, to realize like, okay, they're going through the same thing too, right? And you're seeing a little bit of them share. I think it's probably really intimidating. I get it. And you want privacy. And I totally respect that. So no one come for me when I'm saying don't have privacy. But just, especially for these young girls, right? And young moms and young women that are like, hey, like, they can do that too, or I can go do that too. Because whether you're an athlete or you work in the front office, we've had guests on that have had babies that are scouts for, teams. As women, we have a couple more things we got to work out, and that's where I want to see that kind of continue to grow.
The WNBA does a good job, like around Mother's Day, they usually run some stories. But more and more every year, we have more players that are become moms. And obviously there's a lot of content there if somebody wants to grab it.
100%. And I think that's where we see sponsors lean in to what they make, right? And what they do and their demographic and how they're able to connect differently than a man would, right? So absolutely. I think it would be interesting to see, like, what does a game day look like for an NBA player with a newborn, and what does a game day look like for a WNBA player with, a newborn or return to play kind of thing. I think that would be an interesting side by side to see what that looks like. Because we've seen some of them, have come in and started carrying, walking their kids in and bringing them to games, and they're taking them, in theory to work, which is no different than when the dad does it and the dad takes them down the tunnel or puts them on the podium. It's the same thing, but it's a different experience as a woman, right? And what your body goes through and what you give. So it would be really cool to see.
Yeah, I agree.
Really cool. Well, I'm so excited we had you on today. You're fantastic. Next time you're stateside, I want you, and you're on the West Coast, or if our paths cross. I'm only in NBA. I don't sit on the WNBA side, but I love when I have the opportunity to kind of spread in my knowledge and learn things and be able to ask questions, because I love when I don't know. And what you've done for the sport of basketball, but also for women, is exciting for me to watch, and to see you be able to make that change purposefully to the agent side, but then continue to impact the game directly because of your experience and expertise. And I love you for saying you don't have to play basketball to be an agent. Thank you. I don't play. I don't. And that's what most guys say is my biggest knock, right? Is she doesn't play. She doesn't understand the game. And it's like, okay, well, when you work in banking, we weren't born into banking. You don't have to learn the business. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of ridiculous to say, but here nor there.
Yeah.
But
and thanks for taking the time. You're in Portugal, it's like 9 o'clock. Like, that's amazing.
I know.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon. Megan, she was amazing. Like, honestly,
so good.
Hall of Fame. Like, we are just in the presence of amazing people all the time. I'm so humbled we get to do this. And this is just such a learning experience for us. Listening to her talk about how important it is for her to pour into the game of basketball that gave her so much. Coming over here from Portugal, playing, she was drafted in the second year of the WNBA. She was drafted. she has just so much knowledge and experience, not only from a technical basketball side, but from the business of basketball for these young women as they enter the league.
No, she was such a great guest. Like for me, just like learning more about the WNBA, learning more about the agency side of things. I'm always fascinated by your stories and what you tell me. And so to hear her perspective was just so cool. And something that's so special is that she was zooming in from Portugal. And that just like makes me feel so good that we have women like that who like champion women like us and are taking time out of their busy schedule to Zoom us at 9 p.m. their time at night just to talk to us. So we love that. And I'm so grateful for people like women like Ticha to join the show.
No, for sure. And I think it's just a testament too of just how much the show's growing, right? And the impact that it's able to make and the responsibility she feels to share her story and her purpose and her path. And from one agent to another, I get it. I know we talked a little bit on the show about, just the commitment and the level of time that you have to give up and be accessible. It really is. I mean, I learned so many things I didn't know, like from maternity leave to what happens when you have a baby as a WNBA player. We touched on Brittany Griner, that whole scenario, and how she actually had players on the same team as Brittany Griner during that entire craziness that went on. But then also find out that Kobe Bryant's dad was one of her coaches.
Yeah.
And he is one of the most iconic NBA players in the lifetime world, all of the above. But in the same breath, he's also been such a great champion for women's sports, with Mambasita Sports and for his 4 daughters, to have that be part of her story. I mean, it is fascinating from athlete to agent to having Kobe's dad as your coach to now being able to, impact the game around the world all the way from Portugal.
Amazing.
I mean, it's crazy. It's so crazy. Well, I'm so glad we got to have her on and share her story. And I love, she left us with a tidbit about Special Olympics and how she gives back to them, but they actually give more to her. Yeah. And so it's so special to hear that even women in leadership places still need something that fills their cup. They still need something that drives them and gives them purpose and passion. And she's found a great community to be able to do that in Special Olympics and then challenge her own players to be able to give back as well.
Love it.
I love it. I love it. Well, that's it from us for Her Table today. We've had an amazing guest. I hope you guys loved it. I loved it. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, follow along. We're going to have some great guests coming up. That's it from Her Table today. We'll see you guys next time.